And, Amelia is amazed to this day. She has to remind me of the bad things, because somehow I've got a gift I don't remember the bad things. I go, oh gosh, yeah. She'll like, you don't remember that? And so I brought a prop this morning. I went in my office and brought a prop. Okay. And she was like, I don't understand how you do it. And I said, you understand that this business is a mess. Oh, yeah. It's a mess. It's a bunch of imperfect people with imperfect conditions and perfect things and perfect owners. And you got to cook it and you've got to make it work. And she said, so I did this quote, which she actually, somewhere I've got it. What do you call it when you
copyrighted?
No, it's not copyright. Believe me, this is probably all over the internet by now. I'm sure, look, it's on the internet. But she actually sewed it into fabric. I don't think this is it. I don't know where it is. But this was a quote I gave her. And she said, well, I don't understand how you do this because you don't, you have all these issues all the time. She said, I can't deal with all these issues all the time. And I said, well, construction's a series of problems connected by a beginning and an ending. How a contractor deals with the problems is real measure of his ability. And that's what it is. You take this hot mess, a bunch of imperfect things, and you make something out.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most redeeming part to me.
All right. So welcome to another episode of Blueprints to Punch List. Today on the show, we have a very special guest who founded and started Wilson & Company. And we've been looking to set this conversation up for quite a while. And today we're making it happen. And also alongside of me, I have another special guest, Stephanie, who's joining us for this show. And just want to welcome you guys both. Stephanie and I will kind of co-host this episode.
Yep.
And Parks will just see where this conversation takes us. We know you have tons of stories. You have 30 plus years experience in construction, which is quite a bit. You've done and accomplished quite a bit in your career. Now as you've taken a backseat and retired from the industry, you're still involved with the construction licensing board. You're have a hobby for beekeeping, and it's just an honor to have you. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Actually, 45 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 43 years as a licensed contractor. On the licensing board, I've met one other contractor that's outlived me. So apparently it's pretty rare air getting down to it. So licensed in 1982. So were you born? Neither one of you born in 82? Okay, so that gives you
not quite. Okay,
it gives you a line, so you kind of know where it is. You could be my children, maybe my grandchildren. I don't know, but anyway, so it's been a while. It's been a good trip.
Well, one way that we like to kick off every episode is just to find or ask you what is a recent win that you had in your life. It could be usually business related, family, health, anything that just pops up. It could be today, this week, recent win.
Well, we live on the coast with had some serious hurricane conditions and flooding and damage and things. And I think the most recent win is that we didn't wash away, but that would kind of be an overstatement. Probably the greatest win is having 5 grandchildren. Mm-hmm. And, unfortunately they're a little geographically remote, but it's the best thing. It's the best thing on earth, career-wise, to have grandchildren. So much better than employees or children. Okay. Because you can do what you want to do with them and you can return them to sender. Okay.
Doesn't matter the condition.
No, it's a great deal. We love our grandchildren. So that's probably the biggest win, having 5 grandchildren.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only have 2 young kids, so still not at that level yet. But we see when they go off to their grandma's house, it's kind of all the rules are out the window, and then they come back exhausted. But
Well,
but it's fun.
I'm closely monitored. I can't do what I did with my own children. Apparently, my own children remember what I did with them. And so they're like being sure that their children are safer than that. So, we haven't killed one yet, so it's good.
That's good.
Yeah. That's a win in and of itself. Well, I guess just jumping right in, founded Wilson and Company in 1994, and we'll get to that. But just want to take you back a little bit before, as you had another successful tenure at another construction company. You graduated from the University of Florida. Can you just take us back through that initial getting through college, getting to your first job in construction, and what that was like?
Well, I kind of got interested in construction where I live now. I helped build my parents' house in 1974. Looking back, I worked for the builder, and the builder didn't pay me. And so I kind of did sweat equity and got to where, I just got infatuated with construction. Thought it was something I wanted to do. So I did what high school students do, and you go to the counselor and the guidance counselor and say, I want to be a contractor. What do I do? Oh, you need to get a degree in business. You can go to college and get a degree in business. I said, oh boy, So if you guys know me, you give me, I get out the gate and I go. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's like the blinders on and I'm running the race and I go. So I skipped my senior year of high school and went into dual enrollment and graduated with an AA degree and went into upper graduate school and got a degree in business. And my last quarter, they have semesters now. And I was walking across campus and saw this guy was in kindergarten with me. He's like, Wilson, what are you doing? And I said, man, I'm going to be a contractor. He said, I've never seen you in a class. I said, what do you mean? I'm taking 7 this quarter. I'm getting out. I'm done. And he said, you know, this is a construction school at the University of Florida. And I said, get out of here. Mm-hmm. So took me to see the dean. Actually took me to have a drink. And after, after a couple of beers, he took me to see the dean, and the dean signed me up, and I did my last quarter dual enrollment there and got a second degree in building construction. But I was out the gate doing something, getting a degree in business. So I think that the degree in business served me well for, the management part of the industry. A lot of people are lacking in. Mm-hmm. And, got my degree in building construction in 1981, got married in 82, graduated in a recession. Okay. We have those things probably,
still do.
Soon coming up again. Couldn't find a job and had a job offer in Nigeria working for an oil company. Now, they were really cool and got to the final interview, and I said, they offered me the job and everything. And it was like, wow, this is a lot of money. Nigeria. It's like, I can make that much money out of college. Yeah. In Nigeria, you live on a barge. I said, on a barge? Yeah. Americans aren't liked there. So we have security and you live on a barge. And I'm like, where does my dog stay? And they said, there's no pets. And I'm like, I can't go to work without my dog, so I didn't take that job. So I found a job in Macon, Georgia, for a contractor that wanted to open an office in Florida. And they wanted to get a Florida graduate to get the license in Florida. So the first thing I did was really study to get the license. And I worked went on a job site as a project engineer, went out there to the superintendent and I said, what are you here for? I said, I'm the project engineer. He said, what do you do? I said, whatever a project engineer does. He said, see that broom? So I started out with an old crusty superintendent that didn't like a college kid. Okay. And eventually, we got along pretty well. And especially because I gave him Fridays off. So that was I was his cover for him to disappear on Friday. So I was on a job site for a while, about 8 months, and they moved me to the office estimating, and started doing estimating. There were no computers. We had a linear word processor, and I worked with the head estimator, and we devised a spreadsheet on a linear word processor. And so then I used to run the tapes. We did a lot of big bids and a lot of negotiated work, but big bids, and we'd run a tape on the estimate, and we would balance the cut sheet, which is, you guys would really think all this is crazy. It's all on paper. Mm-hmm. You got to balance the columns and the adds and the takeouts, and you might take electric out and put it in 4 times at the end, and you run the numbers, and that's pretty good on the calculator. And so the owner of the company couldn't handle it because I was putting the numbers in faster than he could follow. So he got an audio calculator, finally found a calculator that talked. This is in the early 80s. So I was running the numbers, and it would be like I'd have 20 numbers ahead of the voice. So they were like, this is not going to work. So finally, not Apple, but Mac who came out with the first computer? Help me out.
The first computer, that was IBM.
It was IBM.
Yeah.
And it was like a tube about this big and a box about that big. And it was like $5,000 back then. And it was terrible. DOS. You had to learn
floppy
DOS.
Disk.
Floppy disk. I don't even know if it had one, frankly. I don't remember.
Predates that even.
Yeah. And so finally I got computers in the company. Okay. And the owner of the company resisted it and fought and fought. It's like, I don't know. I want that tape, and, I want to look at the numbers on printed and this and that and the other. So finally I, basically got computers in the company. So they decided that they weren't coming to Florida after I got my license, and they were going to move me to Atlanta. And I decided I would change jobs. By that time I'd met Amelia and got married. And, I found a company, Suit Construction, that was looking for somebody in Florida to open an office. So came to Orlando, to Altamont Springs, actually, and helped open the office there. They had a couple of people there before me. And then I came here, and I was a project manager, and I worked in estimating and helped in marketing, did a bunch of things, and had projects in North Carolina and Georgia and Naples, Florida. They finally got one in Naples, Florida. They'd let me fly, so I had to drive. So the first 4 or 5 years there, I went through a couple of cars. I mean, the miles I put on cars was crazy.
It adds up real fast.
Go to Atlanta, swing back through, leave the dictaphone tape in the office on Friday night, get Monday morning at 5 a.m., head to Naples, do a sweep. I had a hotel room. You're from South Florida. Joe Robbie Stadium. Is it still there?
I don't think so.
Okay. It's where they played. It was the Orange Bowl. I don't think it's there.
No. Yeah. The Orange.
So I had a room at the Holiday Inn for 3 nights for 8 years. Okay. I finally went in there one time and welcome back Parks Wilson. They had a billboard out front. It's like I had my own room, had my own hole in the mattress. It was my space. It was my room, the same room for years. So I traveled a lot, and I was gone 3 to 4 nights, sometimes weekends, all the time. Started having children, and the oldest child one day, I was actually holding her in a rocking chair, talking to her, and she said, "Daddy, do you like working for Holiday Inn?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, that's where you always are when you call us." And I'm like, "Oh, that kind of broke my heart a little bit." And, eventually the office opened and we started doing work predominantly in Florida. So we had another little recession come along and a big project that went south, financially big. And they decided they're probably going to close the office. Okay. Or combine it with the Tampa office. And I'd have to move to Tampa. And I was like, I've got a home. My kids are in church. I don't want to change. I don't want to change. And so I came up with all these schemes. I had a guy that worked with me that I couldn't figure out how to scale. Had to do the big scale. Had to do the big work, in my head. And I had a guy that worked with me, the estimator, and he and I were pretty close. And I said, hey, would you like to do it together? Like, yeah, I think we're going to do it. So we have this meeting with the former company in Macon. We go up there, have a great meeting, decide to do a joint venture, and they're going to back us financially. And, have a good relationship with that owner still. He's alive, great guy. And, he said he'd back us. So we get back to Florida, and this estimator's not saying a word in the car. I'm like, what's up? And he goes, I can't do this. I can't take the risk, because it's taking the risk. It's everything.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I had a wife, Amelia, that she had no problem. She trusted me 100%. She said, we start out with nothing. It's okay. And I thought, well, okay. So I resigned and opened Wilson and Company. First thing I did was got to have an office. You can't work at home. Okay. I had to have 2 spaces. So I rented a little space. Phone systems were a little different then. Computers had graduated a little bit. Had a friend give me a phone system. It looked like a locker on a wall. And I was calling all these people for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, all these people that, I knew just needed me to work for. Nobody ever called me back. Okay. And I'm like sitting there one day, and I'm, specializing in anything, replacing doors. We did a sewer line for the city of Oviedo. It was great. Sidewalks, anything I could figure out how to do. And so I'm sitting there one day, and, the finances were looking pretty rough. We took all of our savings and put it in, and Amelia, has always kept the finances. And she's like, honey, another month, I got to get another job. We got to do something. We had literally cut the air conditioning off. We had literally cut off our publications, newspapers. I don't think there was internet or, cable then, but we'd basically gone back to everything. No eating out, everything. And so, 6 months in, it looked pretty bad. And I hear the door. Somebody's knocking at the door. Well, it's not in a great location. I kept the door shut. Okay. Locked. Nobody ever came to see me like, you think they do. And is this client? And he's like, where have you been? I've been leaving you messages. Well, turned out the phone system was faulty. And he was getting all these messages.
Oh, no.
So I get a guy to come in, and he's like, you've got like 800 calls from people. And it's like, Parks, where are you?
They thought you disappeared.
Have you died? What's happened? And it's like all of a sudden this plethora of work comes up. And so, so we, had done anything and everything, and our veterinarian needed a new office, new building. And so we helped do plans and, got that design and got it in permitting. And the vet's wife, still a dear friend, she comes to see me one day, and she says, Parks, we can't do it. We've bought another home, and we can't sell the house we're in. And I said, you can't sell that house. I'd been in it. They were friends. And she said, we can't sell the house because it's got vinyl flooring in the kitchen and the hall. Everybody wants tile. Do you know anybody can lay tile? I said, yeah, I can lay tile. Well, I went to Home Depot. I went to tile class. Okay. So I got tile class and learned how to use the spacers and everything. And I said, I'll lay the tile. You guys go out. So literally for 2 weekends, because they had to work, and, I was trying to work too and make a living and not doing a good job of it. And so they sold the house the next week. So we got our first job and started out with that and kind of grew from there. And, but it had gotten to the point where financially, we were there, we just didn't have any money. Everything that we'd had in life was gone. All our working capital, all of our personal savings was gone into working capital and business. It was drained away. I wasn't taking a salary. We were just trying to live on it. And so that kind of started it, and then rocked along after that, and had a owner of a building come to me that was a friend and said, we've got a post office that's going to go in the building. You ever done one? I said, no, but I can. It's not an issue. So we bid on the job, and it was, privately funded. So, we didn't have to go through all the post office requirements and everything, and got the job. I was the superintendent. project manager, carpenter. I built the boxes, most of them, the frames the boxes go in. So that was our first post office job. So Wilson and Company today, 30 years later, has done many, many post offices.
Yeah.
So it kind of came from that. And that's how the company got started and took off after that. We got some scale and were able to get bonding and start doing some bigger work and started doing kind of the work I had done before, maybe not to the scale of the big stuff at Suit, but, so I think two of the things I learned: never burn a bridge. Okay. Preserve those relationships, with your people you work with. Okay. Don't go out and burn the bridge, because I can always go back and still got those relationships today. So that was a part of, that's really how the company got started.
It's taken quite a leap to go from making that transition from Georgia to now you have a guy that you're going to start the business with. He backs out, and then you're just, I'm going to do it anyway and figure it out. And once you got the phones working, it sounds like things were actually...
That was crazy. I haven't thought of that in years until this morning. You asked me that question. I'm like, oh gosh, wow. You sit there and you think it's over, and it's something stupid and you're doing all the right things and nothing's happening, so it was, really, really testing. I'd call that. And I think one of the things is, you guys know me enough. I don't have a lot of fears. Okay. You don't have any fear. You trust. I have faith. I trust in God, and I don't worry about it. And I go forward. And, Amelia is amazed to this day. She has to remind me of the bad things, because somehow I've got a gift I don't remember the bad things. I go, oh gosh, yeah. She'll like, you don't remember that? And so I brought a prop this morning. I went in my office and brought a prop. Okay. And she was like, I don't understand how you do it. And I said, you understand that this business is a mess.
Oh, yeah.
It's a mess. It's a bunch of imperfect people with imperfect conditions and perfect things and perfect owners. And you got to cook it and you've got to make it work. And she said, so I did this quote, which she actually, somewhere I've got it. What do you call it when you
Copyrighted?
No, it's not copyright. Believe me, this is probably all over the internet by now. I'm sure, look, it's on the internet. But she actually sewed it into fabric. And I don't think this is it. I don't know where it is. But this was a quote I gave her. And she said, well, I don't understand how you do this, because you don't, you have all these issues all the time. She said, I can't deal with all these issues all the time. And I said, well, construction's a series of problems connected by a beginning and an ending. How a contractor deals with the problems is real measure of his ability. And that's what it is. You take this hot mess, a bunch of imperfect things, and you make something out of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most redeeming part to me. We drove on the way here this morning. I didn't show y'all that building. It's like, yeah. Wow. It's like 6 of them on Loma coming into here, that you don't know.
Yeah. And to me too, it's about the process. Like, if you're not in the right business, if you don't enjoy to a large degree that imperfect mess that we have to sort out, and owners, subcontractors, landlords, municipalities, all these parties that have a say in what we're building. And that to me is one of the things that I enjoy the most. It's not getting the project actually completed. Yes, that's fun. Nice to see something that you took from whatever it was, whether it was a ground up building, not just a piece of dirt, or an old shopping center, and then taking it to that completion. But it's everything that in between, all the getting the right permits, getting all the contracts out, getting your subcontractors and vendors to show up on time, materials shipped and delivered. And so all these things are part of that. And that to me, like, is the daily wins come from taking those steps and just moving them along, and one step at a time, one day at a time.
And then still finding a way to balance the budget, keep it on track for schedule, make sure the client changes get incorporated.
Yeah.
It's definitely a juggling act and putting different ingredients into a recipe.
But that's the beauty of it to
Mhm.
me. That's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. It's a recipe for disaster,
Or
okay,
success.
or success. And it's what you do every day. It's a little baby step all the way, and keep your eye on the goal, okay, and you go forward.
Yeah, and that's just life. We're not in control of the people that are going to show up and do the work for us.
I used to have a hard time with that, just so you know. Where are you? You know, you guys probably don't know this, but I've bailed a few people out of jail to get them there on Monday morning.
Yep.
Okay.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I was subcontractors, not employees, so we won't throw anybody under the bus there. And I first time I did it, I was like, this is how the system works. I'd never bailed anybody out. I didn't know anything about it. And I went in the building to pay the cash bail, and the door locked behind me, and it was like, I'm in the jail. Oh my gosh, what if they don't let me out? I'm in the jail. So anyway, you got to do what you got to do. Okay.
That's it.
You got to live out, if you've got to drive on Saturday to be there on Monday to Texas to carry something to Texas, you got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to some degree, that can be a flaw, because I see that, I'm so task oriented that, I workaholic, and that's probably transferred into retirement. I still have too many things to do, that are open-ended all the time, but that's how God wired me. So that's what it is. But it's a neat business.
It is. And I think we're similar, that anybody that works in construction has some of that DNA in them. Because
ADD?
maybe.
OCD?
Yeah, maybe.
Contingency plans on contingency plans on contingency plans.
Yeah.
It's just you build a parachute on the way down.
That's right.
My wife asked my mother one time, she said, what did you do? What was he like as a child? Was he always like this as a child? And she said, yeah. She said, what'd you do? She said, honey, I don't know. We took him to the doctor and they drugged him. So I have no idea what back in the, 50s, 60s, I have no idea what they gave me. So anyway, I was drugged. So
By medical professionals.
Yeah, but don't know what it was, but I got it.
So we have a few questions that a few of the employees, some of them that had the opportunity to work with you, some of them that are newer that haven't had a chance to even meet you yet. We asked them if you have some questions that you'd like to hear, maybe we'll find a way to ask you. So one of the questions was, as a father of 3 wonderful girls, how difficult was it for you to find the balance between your home life and then starting and running a company?
Sometimes not good. I'd say that balance is something for a person like me with the DNA I have difficult to do. We fortunately, Amelia picked up the slack a lot with that, more than me, if I had to look back, and the kids, all 3 of them inherited those genes. So they're workaholics too. They work all the time.
Yeah.
And some of that's good. And I can see some of it in a way that, slow down and, smell the roses. Thus the beekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
I did that many, many decades ago and took a hiatus on that and started again in earnest about 5 or 6 years ago. And one of the things I found with that is to do it successfully, it modifies, you're trying to modify their behavior. Beekeeping, bees are a wild animal. So you're basically,
Taming them.
no, you're
No,
not
you
taming them.
can't.
You're just manipulating their behavior. It's manipulation is what it's really called technically. So you're not modifying them. They get used to you. So one of the things that beekeeping does when I actively do, it's a lot of back end stuff, which fuels putting stuff together, cleaning stuff up. It can be overwhelming for not much return. But one of the things I've found that beekeeping does is it slows me down. Okay, because you can't act erratically, you can't do it quickly.
Mhm.
Otherwise, they look at you as an aggressor, like a bear or a skunk or something's trying to kill them, and then you get stung pretty badly. So if you do it slowly in a methodical manner, deliberately, you have a better outcome. And I think that, if I had to take that forward to construction, you do things with a more deliberative manner, with a more thoughtful manner, you have a better result than Katie bar the door, go crazy, out the gate. So, getting back to balance is an issue. It's still an issue in my life. I don't think I'll ever have that completely solved. I don't think that, our children, they came to work. They came to the office to visit dad after school. And that's kind of how it was. And so, was it all right? No. Did it work out good in the end? Yes.
Yeah, I remember we got the first time I got hired. I actually was hired by Parks. Had an interview with him, have stuff in common with him. His middle daughter is Stephanie. I'm Stephanie of 3, and I'm in the middle. That was fun.
And she's in the middle.
That's right.
Barry almost quit because of her.
Oh, really?
She was working and she'd come in after school, and I don't really know what she was doing, but she was working for minimum wage and doing something. And we had some cubicles, and Barry I'd brought him in, and he said, "Where'd I sit?" I said, "Go back there and find a cube. Okay. Just whichever one works out for you, work it out." Well, it turned out it was her cube. So she came in, and there's Barry at her cube, and he had used her pencils and he'd used her tape and probably stick-it notes and all that kind of thing. And so it's like Barry comes in, shuts the door, and that's always not a good sign with employees. He's like, "I don't know if this is going to work out."
Can't have my cubicle.
Well, you got to move to another cube. So he's like, and he told me, when we started exploring talks, he said, "Is Stephanie going to be part of this?" I said, "No." Wow, that's a good thing. So that's my Stephanie.
Right.
Yeah, but I think with kids, Wilson and Company, there is an environment there that really supports families, because we're a family oriented company.
Yeah.
A lot of us have kids and younger kids, so we realize the importance of.
You bring your kids in?
Yeah, they come in sometimes.
Okay. I think that's good for them and you.
Yeah, I do too. And as they get a little bit older, they'll probably do it a little bit more often.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, you just have to over-index, in my opinion, on the fun things that we end up doing, like going on vacations. And when we spend the time with them on the weekends, it's distraction free as possible. And that's really it, because the work is always going to be there with us. There's travel, there is, long days at times, but when things get a little bit slower and you have that time, then you really just got to focus on that. So it's not balanced every day perfectly, but it's over time, can it get to those levels of where it's really is, they feel like they're part of this journey that we're all on together.
Yeah. I know one of the cores that we have for our company is this building client satisfaction. That's something that you implemented and you emphasized when you first started the company. So what does that mean to you in our industry right now?
I figured out early on that you could do not such a good job in the actual product. But if you made the client happy, okay, a good client, you find out what does the client want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You find what is your goal. And the goal, if you're dealing with a client, is pure money. Okay. It's a whole different mindset. Pure money and time.
True.
Dealt with enough clients, pure money and time, that it's a different mindset. Okay. But if you deal with a client that you find out, and you've got to please that client as well. The hard client with money and time, you still got to please them. But if you find a client, you find out what's their ultimate goal. Okay. And that's a part of holistically what you're doing. You're trying to meet their expectation. And, if you make them happy, you're building client set. You're not building a building. You're not really building a building. You're building what that client wants. And if you satisfy them, you've done your job. So that's where that came from. Building client satisfaction.
Yeah.
And actually I think it's still copyrighted. I hope the company keeps it continuing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's copyrighted, and that was where it came from.
Yeah, there is having that as a core philosophy. I think once you really understand and internalize it, there's a lot of truth to that as what we do specifically. It's not about, yes, we build buildings, but to your point, it's about dealing with people and managing those emotions. So yeah, having that underlying principle as the guiding light makes a difference. So how did you come up with that we build client satisfaction? Just
by the thought process that, that's what you've got to do to have a successful project.
Mm-hmm.
If you finish that job, and I've told project managers before, you finish that job and you have doubled your profit on the job, and you've got a client that doesn't like you, you've not done your job. Okay. If you've done that job and you didn't make what you thought you were going to make, but you've got a client that loves you and it's going to give you another 10 jobs,
mm-hmm.
you're going to be better off. Okay. And sometimes that, when you really get down to business, that hurts. The financial part can hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you've got to make a decision, to give that person what they want, or entity what they want. And if you do, you're building that satisfaction. It leads long term. Short term, it can be awfully painful.
Yeah.
As you all know.
Yeah.
Long term, if you've got a client that really appreciates what you're doing for them, then it can be, gratification, and it can be satisfying for everybody.
So do you have an example when that went the other way, where you just did everything you could and you're still not able to satisfy that client?
Wow. Several.
Mm-hmm.
And without naming names, we did a project probably first 4 or 5 years in business, and it was an owner. I found out that owners that don't have loans or accountability to bigger organization, I'm paying for it cash, are more difficult to work for, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so we were doing this, and it was a elderly client, and his wife we dealt with, and we built a building. I'll show it to you on the way back. And we were finishing the building, and I knew the guy was sick. I didn't know he died. And we finished the building, and the client, difficult getting the money from day one. Everything was hard. Everything was hard. Hard dollar. You heard that term?
Yeah.
In the business, hard dollar. Everything was hard. It was a fight. Hard dollar. Every penny was a fight. And you get those people, or owners. You have to work for them and work through it. It's different than the person who's willing to pay a fair price for, a product. So got to the end, and the owner, hadn't paid us for a couple of months. It was a quick job. It was like 6 months, ground up building. And so, we were like half unpaid, and the building was finished. And finally I ran up, got the owner finally. The internet wasn't fashionable then, and found out that he had died. And she said, I'm not going to pay you because you should have known he died. I didn't want to finish the building. So anyway, it was like, oh, really? We started it, but you didn't want to finish it. Yeah, I just don't want to finish it, so I'm not going to pay you. So that began my first experience with the legal realm of construction. And we won it. Took a while. And found out during the course of it, the owner told the two attorneys who were like, they were agreeing just to get rid of it, and she wouldn't. And the attorney said, she's got like 80 lawsuits, and this is the first one she ever lost. But we did the right thing. Okay. I finished the job, had a couple $100,000 of my money that was really valuable at that time into it. We finished the job. Okay. And I could have stopped and could have filed a lien early because, knew something was up, but, couldn't verify that indeed a person had died. So, ultimately that turned into, we didn't make any money on the job, but we did the right thing. And we preserved our integrity and got through a difficult situation. So I could give you 20 stories like that. Not quite like that.
That's pretty extreme when somebody's dying and not finding out till the end. But there's crazy things that happen. But to your point, I know Stephanie knows too, that we've done projects with Wilson where it was to our financial loss, where it came down to doing the right thing, for finishing the project, doing it right, and realizing that even if at our cost, we still had to do what we set out to do, because it's one project is never going to define you.
Yes.
Unless you let it. And I think just moving forward from that will ultimately build your reputation. You can't build a 30-year-old, 35-year-old company and beyond without having these kind of principles in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you've done at least over 12 million square feet of building while you were with Wilson and Company. What is one of your favorite projects?
Oh, goodness. I did about 1 million square foot building in Jacksonville for Sears. And it was my first second tilt-up building. Okay. And it was for Sears catalog showroom. Okay. We built that building in 6 months, and it was huge. I mean, I've gotten 3,000 feet long or something, and had like 400 overhead doors, and it was just fast tracked. It went quick. And, we finished that job and was so excited to do it. And then they never opened the building. So, I was just blown away how fast we could do something. And we had everything planned very well. Mm-hmm. And then they never moved in.
Wow.
So it was
what happened to the building?
It's a warehouse of some kind now, and during the course of it, we had, what Craftsman tools are, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do they still have a lifetime warranty?
I think it's a limited lifetime warranty.
So we big building, right? Like out there, and there's like everybody's parking in one area out there. Okay. And so Sears came along and said, we've got a real problem with your employees, and what's wrong? We have a meeting. So turned out that when they were digging the footings, they had discovered where Sears had buried all the old Craftsman tools that people had turned in to get a new one. They didn't destroy them. They just dug a hole in this place that they'd owned for years. And so everybody's out there going through, like artifacts. They're loading their cars and going and getting new tools. And so it's like, geez, what can happen next? So then we had to get shuttle buses. Building's so big, you had to deal with people, to not let them park their car by where they work to steal the tools.
Right.
And Sears brought in a huge metal crushing machine and metal detectors, and starting finding where whoever it was that thought it was a good idea, just bury them in a hole in the ground. Nobody ever find them, but they found them all.
Oh yeah,
So did that answer your question?
it's definitely one of the favorite ones, I would say.
Okay. No.
Yeah, and yeah, again, leading Wilson and Company to become really a premier GC in the field that we operate. We're in that mid-size range, both from a people perspective and a financial perspective. But a lot of that, to build that out, takes the leadership to bring that about. I guess the question around is how did you establish your leadership principles that you operated company, whether it was early on and then building it out to really be a standout company that it's become?
I think you've got to trust people and to delegate things properly. And trust is probably the most difficult human thing to overcome with people, especially when, owning something, you're trusting them with your name, you're trusting them with your money, you're trusting them with your reputation. And I've probably, as far as that, basically had to trust people. And I've made some good decisions. I've made some great decisions. I've made some poor decisions, but you've got to trust people. And I think that's leadership. You can kind of guide people, and you can kind of take a person that maybe doesn't have the skill sets and work them towards that, rather than condemning them for where they are. You're trying to build them, and basically you're building their abilities to do something. And I think that's probably, I've taken, much like the building, this a bunch of imperfect things. I've taken a bunch of imperfect people, and they're still not perfect, but, I've helped them grow and trusted them. Okay. And you've got to do that. I think that's essential to leadership. And that's difficult. It can be very difficult for some people.
Yeah, because a lot of times they're not going to do it the same way you want them to do it, and they're going to have their own interpretations. But it's, trusting that to give them the goal that you want accomplished, right? And then they'll have to make their own path too. Because every PM that works at Wilson, and then really every employee that has a function within a company, they have their job description, right? What they're supposed to do, but they do it in their own unique style. Stephanie and I are while we're both PMs, we both get the same things done, but we get to it in sometimes different pathways. And that's just, but if you said to, hey, this is what you have to do, this is how you have to do it, the Parks way, for example, then it's not necessarily trusting them to let them loose and to give them the opportunity to bring that personality into it.
See, I came up as a project manager. Okay. Typically, before I'm in the business, I was a chief project manager of suit and had a bunch of guys working for me, superintendents. And, you get into, as a project manager on the bigger projects, it's not a cookbook.
No.
You got to do it. It's a bigger gig. And so, you've got a control thing there. Okay. When you really get down to the bigger companies that are very regimented in roles and how they work, and this is your slot, and this is your groove. That's where you stay. You don't go over here and do it. And a company our size, you've got to be multifaceted. You've got to do different things. You got to be able to have a skill set to do a lot of things. Okay. You got to understand what you're building. You've got to understand how to deal with people. You've got to understand how to deal with money. You've got to understand how to deal with time. You've got to take all those things and put them together. So it's everybody does that differently. But as you guys know, the budget doesn't move. And the time never goes forward. There's always a day. Okay. So you got to you can't wait until the 11th hour and go, oh my gosh, we're not going to make the schedule. You got to be preemptive and you got to figure that out front. So you got to understand some scheduling. You have some really good scheduling skills. You got to figure out what you got to do up front. I learned at SUIT doing some bigger projects, what superintendents would do. They go out and do the easiest thing on the job first. That would be the flashiest thing that had nothing to do with the critical path of schedule. Okay. And I did, when I was in college, we didn't have computers, so I had to draft on a drafting board critical path notes and to draw a CPM schedule. Oh, that was the coolest thing on earth. I did that. I took it at my first job, an old crusty superintendent, 70 years old and 20-something-year-old young guy that didn't know anything. And I went out there and laid out the schedule and showed him my critical path schedule. And we were building a Pepsi-Cola bottling company building that I actually had negotiated and estimated and permitted and got design. Got the whole thing. It kind of got me out of estimating into what I wanted to do. And I took the schedule out and met with him in the trailer, and he looked at, I've never seen such in my entire life. He took it, folded it up and put it in his desk and said, that's where that schedule is going to stay. I didn't know what to do, you know? I mean, my feelings were hurt. I had drafted that thing and drawn all these lines, and, you know, it was blue line, ugly, you know, blueprint. But I was so proud. I thought it was going to be on the wall, you know, like framed or something, and we were going to follow it. And this guy's like, you know, so I got in the car and kind of probably cried a little bit and went back, you know, 20 miles. And I thought, you know, I was going to go to the office and sulk, okay? And just let that guy have his way and let him do what he was going to do. I turned the car around, got off the interstate, got to an exit, turned the car around, went back to the job site. And he was in there. He pulled it out of the drawer. Okay. And I went back and I was project manager now, right? Over this guy who, you know, had decades on top of me, you know, 50 years of construction on top of mine. And I nicely told him I was his boss. And you know, he said, I was wondering if you were going to be able to do that or not. Nice. It was a test. And he had pulled that thing out to look at. He'd never seen a schedule like that. He'd never seen anything like this. Okay. And so that kind of got the right relationship. And we had a good relationship and had a successful project, and we followed that schedule. You know, so schedules are essential. Mm-hmm. You can't start out beginning of a job and just, the worst thing you can do is start a job without pre-planning it. That's the worst thing. You just go to work on Monday and sit around and wonder what you're going to do, and you don't have anything planned, and nothing's coming. You've just wasted a month. Mm-hmm. You're better off working for a month and starting and having everything ready to go, you know, and starting and actually doing something.
Yeah. In an ideal world, that's definitely the best, the way to, you know, set up there's this quote, I think Einstein said it, that he would, if he had 4 hours to chop down a tree, he would take the first 3 hours sharpening the axe and then 1 hour chopping the tree. Whereas what you're saying is most people just get the axe and then start whacking
for 4 hours.
For 4 hours and not get it done. So, you know, there are projects where we have the time to have that kind of a setup. However, there are times where it's like, nope, you're awarded, permit's been issued, we're getting ready to mobilize and start. When can you guys be on the job site? So you're saying that's when we need to have that little bit of a just firmer stand on, hey, let's make sure everything is ready. Submittals are processed. And so we're not just going out there and swinging hammers and nobody has a clue what they're doing.
Yeah, you always want that at least 2 weeks mobilization phase. So that way you can plan out everything, decide who's got to get out to the job site first, make sure they have their contract, make sure they have all the materials, whatever they've got to start when they start the project, you have that in place. And then you can sort of go from there. But that critical first section of work has to be thought out at least for 2 weeks.
See, it's difficult to tell a client, I'm better off starting in 3 weeks than Monday when they want you to start.
Yep.
Because they're like, their expectations are there, and who they're reporting to is wanting to see action, wanting to see something. But it can be detrimental. And, if you've got a person that's mature and you can explain them, it's not that we can't get there. Okay, we can get there, but we're not really going to be doing anything. Well, the answer usually is get there and don't do anything, but you better make the time.
I want a body on site.
Yeah, I want something happening, but that's really detrimental to the process. If you can somehow take the time to pre-plan things up front, and then you hit the ground rolling, you got everything there, you got everything in the supply chain coming. The subcontractors don't get the phone call on Friday to be there on Monday.
Right.
Can you imagine what they think of that? Okay. And their respect for you if you call them on Friday and you got to be there on Monday in a panic.
Especially if it's, hey, I need you to fly out to Texas. You're like, what?
So
sure.
I've worked, I built a building for a big fire protection contractor. Won't say what it is. And as a project manager, and the owner of the company called me in one day, young guy again, and wanted to have a meeting. And then the guy had pretty flashy, big diamond rings, and he's like the icon of fire protection in Florida. And called me in the office and had a little chat with the young guy. And he said, I thought we'd really screwed up. I thought something on the job was wrong I didn't know about. Basically, he was in there to give me a lesson on what it's like to work for a GC as a sub.
Okay.
And I was like, wow. And he said, fire protection has a window of opportunity. If I don't get in at the proper time, I don't make a profit. Okay. If you call me and you don't properly schedule, or your other subs are behind, I need to get in. I need to get my pipe in just as soon as the steel, if you're building a new building, just as soon as it's clear. I need to get that pipe in. Electrician needs to get their conduit right there. Okay. If electrician and the fire protection sub's got to come in after the ductwork's in, and they've got to get a lift over a piece of ductwork that's 12 feet wide and try to feed the pipe through, their efficiency's going to pop.
Yeah.
They're lost money. So that was probably one of the, working for a subcontractor as a GC. It was a great job, but an eye-opening experience. And I challenge either one of you to talk to a sub and see what they think of you. Okay. Sub tells you what they think of you. That'll tell you, how they're going to price the job and how they're going to do the job. Because subs bid jobs at different prices to different GCs.
Yep.
And I've witnessed that firsthand with subcontractor friends.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of truth to that. At the end of the day, they have to be able to make money, right? And that's, yes, we have a good working relationship, but we're hiring these people and they want to profit as a business. They want their employees to do well, just like every other company out there. So if we don't have that understanding, and I think that's the approach too that I like to take, is that, yes, I got to make sure if they're happy and they're making money with me, they're going to want to be on my projects. And whatever we have to do to make them not lose that time, that's where it comes back to that organization, having that schedule, having the proper sequences. Like just before we left the office, I was on phone with one of our superintendents about, we have just got done demoing a project and we got the overhead. So AC ducts are they need to be installed. We got the trenches that need to be cut and the sanitary pipe to be laid. And then we have the steel guy that wants to come in too, to put up all the RTU supports and the joist support. So how do we figure out which one, right? That's that organization. You can't have the sanitary lines being in progress because you're going to have dirt all over the place and they're not going to be able to operate their lifts and get access to the RTU curb. So it's just making sure and being really conscious of that is huge, right?
Well, after that, as a project manager, I called in the MEP trades together, and we'd have like a private meeting, not a job site meeting with everybody. And we'd have a private meeting. We talk about where you need to be when, okay, and how it relates to each other. And it really transformed my perspective of working with subcontractors, having had one as a client, and I had a subcontractor we built a building for. I went in his office one day and was bidding jobs. Since back when using faxes, he had an A, a B, and a C price. A was $100,000, B was 110, and C was like 130, if I remember the number, something like that. A was the GC that had them scheduled properly, treated them right, paid them right, and they always made money on their jobs. B was the GC that was kind of clunky, but treated them right, and they did okay. And C was the GC that shopped them and beat them up, and they all lost, it's always a loss. So he had figured out through the years, he added a price onto those people. Okay. And I was like, oh, wow, that you really do. Is this legal? Of course it is. I can do what I want to do.
Yeah. We don't have to hire you.
Yeah. So, he had developed into a path, and he'd get the bids, and he'd fill out a bid form and fax them individually, and he'd have A, B, and C, and he'd figure out where the numbers were and fill them in, handwritten in the blank, and send them out.
Yeah, because a lot of times their takeoffs can be super simple, right? Like flooring, you're just adding the material cost, what the square foot is for install, but then it's that GC factor. And it is a good reminder to just making sure that in the busyness of these projects, that we don't lose sight of that, because just like building client satisfaction on the customer side, if we don't have the right team and the right vendors to do the work, then you can build all the client satisfaction if you can't deliver, because we screwed every sub that we've ever dealt with. So I think that's a very good reminder to always keep that in the forefront of, they just want to go in there, get the job done, be out of there, make some money, and then do the next one.
They're not doing you a favor.
Right.
They're in it for a reason.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out what the reason is and help them get there.
Yeah. And I mean, it's usually to make a profit and to keep their company growing and whatever those aspirations are. I would say though, it's the sub that I don't ever get to see or talk to is usually like the least problems. We just had a project that had some drywall issues with the finishes, and because of that, the paint and the painter didn't do a great job of finishing that, and just didn't get caught along the way. And we ended up having to spend like 200 hours coming back, refinishing pretty much every wall and repainting it. And I was like, we've been working together for about 5 years with this painter. And I was like, I know I've talked to you and we've emailed, texted, but that was the first time that I've actually met you face to face. And
you need to do it like Texas.
Yeah.
You know how Texas does, right?
It's one company.
It's one company. They do the drywall and they do the painting, and it's like, it won't come out bad.
This year, there's one responsible.
Yeah, I think first job I did in Texas, I thought, they've got it figured out. And we come back here, you do the drywall, and you get a painter, and it's always the drywaller's fault, and it's always the painter's fault, and you get that.
So being in construction for 45 years, what kept you passionate about this industry?
Solving a problem every day. Challenge. And when I started backpedaling, probably as you guys came in, I got really bored. Really bored, really quick, because I wasn't solving problems. And, when Barry started taking over the company, I'd be like, there's a problem over here. Smell it. Okay. And I go get in the middle of the problem, and a day or two later, Barry comes and shuts the door and says, yeah, we're already down that road. Cause I'm like, this is what you do. And this is how you do it. You need to do this. We need to fix this. Need to do this and fix that. And be like, probably both of you, I don't know. I did that too. And, I'm a problem solver.
Mm-hmm.
Like finding something and fixing it kind of thing. And so, that's kind of where that went.
I think it's like I think one of the conversations I've had with you is putting the pieces of a puzzle together. And if you have the experience that you have because you've been in this business for a long time, you can sort of anticipate which puzzle pieces are going to be needed. And someone with less experience might not, they might start at the borders and then eventually fill in. Whereas you can just, oh, these are the orange shapes. Let's put all these together first and then, get the big blocks done. And that's the easier way to do it. So everybody has their own approach, but it is awesome to get that feedback and have somebody there to help identify things ahead of time, talk it through. I know as a company, we share information about projects that we're working on all the time. Every Monday morning, we have a meeting about what we have going on, what difficulties we've had. And that's an opportunity for us to share, this is a situation that came up on my project. And then someone else's, oh yeah, that did happen on mine. This is how I handled it. This is what you can do moving forward. So it's a great way for us as a company to share information, share experiences, and learn.
And that's difficult in a managerial perspective of just not doing it, getting somebody else to do it because they're going to do it a different way,
right? Probably.
And sometimes that was frustrating to me. It was like they're wandering around in the forest. Get out of the forest, let's do this. And it's like, I don't see it. I don't see the tree. And it's like, it's right there. Oh, and that comes with time, and some people will never get it. They never get it, but that's just personalities.
Yeah, for sure. So we have another employee question. What's one mistake you made as a leader that taught you the most about building a strong, unified team? And how did you recover from it?
Probably one of my flaws is hanging on to hiring someone and hanging on to them too long, thinking I'm going to redeem them or I'm going to train them. And I've always had that hope, okay, that I could take somebody and for the most part, it's come out good, but I held on to a number of people way too long, okay, way too long, that were never going to change, okay, and we won't name names, some of them,
I know some of them.
but and so that's probably the biggest thing. I do see a dichotomy between Barry and me. I was kind of amazed because he's like, it's not working out. They're gone. And I'd be like, oh no, let me talk to them some more and let me mentor them some more and, work on them a little more. And there's always hope, right? And it kind of was amazing to me because here's Barry, like this missionary kid, and he's supposed to be full of compassion and everything. And I'm out there trying to drag along, something that's never going to be anything. And Barry's like, no, we'll see you. Bye. And so that's probably the hardest thing, probably the biggest detriment of me. And I think holistically it came out, but I didn't cut, fish or cut bait quick.
Right.
Like maybe I should have.
Yeah, that's a hard conversation because ultimately we brought somebody onto the team who we thought was the right fit. They're making that choice to work at the company, and so yeah, there's always a mix of like we're at their responsibility to form them. And I think as a leader, it is our job because it comes back to the leadership of us as having the systems in place and the training. So maybe that person just wasn't qualified to begin with, but a lot of times I think it does come back to me. Like when I look at it is like, did I do my best to make sure to provide the training, the information, the communication for that individual to have them be the best in the best seat to succeed. And sometimes you hire somebody initially and they're not the right person for that job, but they're right for something else, and you don't find out until later on. But yeah, it's always a challenge with that. Yeah, I mean, we talked about quite a bit here, your history, which is what the intent of this was, is to just find out, to keep that legacy of Wilson and Company for years to come, for what you started. And I know, I've always had an appreciation for working here and for all the things that you did to get us to the point that we're at now. Going hearing some of these stories about laying tile and the 6 months of the no calls, it does make it more real and puts it more into perspective. And I hope, as we grow as a company and others that are coming on, they'll be able to see this interview and kind of reflect back on that as well. For young people coming into this industry, I think there is massive opportunities across the trades as a whole. Mm-hmm. It's underserved. It's underappreciated in a lot of ways, because you do have to get dirty and sweaty, and at least to get that path started, right? Like you have to lay the tile yourself. But what advice would you give to somebody who's coming in, looking at this construction as a viable path for their future, and maybe starting their own construction company? What's is there anything that you would say, hey, these were some of the things that you should look out for, or some things that you could take and just run with?
I'd say first, look at the opportunities for being a tradesman versus a manager, mm-hmm. and look at the long-term rewards both ways. We as a culture want our children. There used to be a country song, "Don't let your children grow up to be cowboys." Mm-hmm. Okay. We don't want our children to get dirty. We don't want our children to sweat. We want our children to get an education and, gain intellect and work in a controlled environment. And so we've got way too much stress on that, like micro dirty jobs. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's all coming together quickly in my head. And, I would say that, people need to consider, that are looking at this business as a potential. Some people just fall into it. Okay. True. And the School of Hard Knocks brings a lot of people in at the trade level. This first job they can find. I got it. Okay. But, as a long-term thing, I would encourage a young person to really don't say, okay, I've got to go in and get a 4-year college degree. I've got to do this. I've got to degree in construction management, business, whatever. That's all good. Get some training. Okay. Do maybe what I did, work in construction, figure out, man, I love this. Okay. And one of my frustrations in life was I could always see people doing things wrong that I felt like I could do better physically. Okay. And maybe I should have been in the trades. I don't know. I probably would have liked it. I probably wasn't very good at everything. And, my painting really is, you don't want me as a painter, because I will not finish the job. I'll walk off. But I would encourage a young person to look at not only the idea of, a professional part, getting the education, but maybe going to the trade schools. Yeah. And I hope that our culture figures this out before we all of a sudden have this huge vacuum of needs for people to actually work. Okay. And in my mind, our culture needs to amplify that as much as we need to have as many trade schools as universities. because look at the number of people that are in it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. And what kind of money can you make being a good plumber? What kind of money can you make being a good electrician? What kind of money is a good sheet metal? What kind of money can you make? What's your, what's your career, going to look like? Is it going job to job and not having a job, which is some of the fear
Mhm.
versus getting, professional, education. But we're going to have a shortage.
We already do have a shortage.
We do.
And is it rampant since I've left? Is it worse?
It is. Some policy changes and just, I mean, the overall to what you're saying is, the young people are looking at this and, what can I make and how much money can I earn? And to that, I would say you set your salary. You have to learn it first, but after that 18 months to 36 months, that 3 years, you should be able to learn that skill enough to where you can go to just about any employer in that field and go like, this is what I'd like to make. And they'd be happy to pay it. And it's upwards of a 6-figure salary.
You can do well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely not out of the realm.
Now, everybody's not going to get there. We all understand that. Okay. But at the same time, we need to take off the societal stigma
Mhm.
of working with your hands.
Agreed.
That is a noble profession.
For sure.
I mean, that's noble. That is needed. It's admired. It's not just, roustabout construction workers. And I think, our culture needs to change for that. And I hope that it is. But I would encourage a person to take off their blinders and look at the other ideas.
Yeah.
Mom and dad might not like it. Right?
And that's the paradigm, because that's the paradigm that they've been sold. And we need to have, I think, more of these conversations. And you bring up Mike Rowe. I think he's the forefront of leading the conversations
More
around
transparent.
these topics. And we just need to be, as the people in the trenches with them, we need to make sure those conversations are happening. We need to make sure we're raising our kids and grandkids are getting that same message of that it's okay that you're going to be a plumber. You can do very well working with your hands. You can be a welder, that you set your own wage is because of the disproportionate supply and demand of that labor force. So yeah, it's just having more of these conversations, honest conversations, and not having the trades looked down upon, because it isn't a worthy cause. It makes the world go around. I mean, let's face it, we're in Florida, so as soon as your air conditioner breaks down, you are freaking out if you don't have, your plumbing backs up because you can't. So like all the infrastructure that we see around us can't happen without the trades.
So as a final question from me, I was wondering, based on reflecting on all of the history of Wilson and Company to date, what makes you most excited about our company's future?
Oh, I think the synergy that's going on. It was it was a situation where, when I was realizing time was coming near, that I looked at opportunities to sell out to bigger companies and had, some interest, Barry coming in that, basically he'd worked for me, and, he didn't like me all the time. I got it. Okay. Didn't agree with me all the time. I got it. I understand. Doesn't do anything the way I did it.
Right.
I got it. Okay. And, to me, I think seeing that, my way wasn't perfect. Okay. That there are other ways to do things, and seeing the company flourish and go forward is gratifying to me. Okay. And, there's times where I was like, come back in and, change everything back the way. No, if something's working and it's different than, I would have done it. to me, that's gratifying.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great legacy. I love this company. I'm excited to work every day. So that started with you, and it's continuing, and we
How
have
long have you been around now?
over 11 years.
11 years. How long have you been around?
Over 7.
Over 7.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So
Okay.
it's hopefully many, many more of
For sure.
those years to come.
I kind of figure I'm going to get cut off for the free shirts and stuff soon. I mean,
We'll
eventually
always
it's going
have
to be
a free
like,
shirt for you.
no more free shirts.
Mhm.
You can't, and it's like, you can't, those camo shirts though, I got to tell you what,
Mhm.
have you worn one?
I have not.
You're not a camo kind
I'm
of guy.
not. But
Well,
I hear
I'm kind of a fish out of water camo guy.
Mhm.
But I tell you what, because I don't hunt, they are nice.
Mm.
Dry wick and, where I live now, I blend right in. They don't know who I am.
I might have to throw one on just to.
Well, it depends on where you go.
Yeah.
True.
Downtown Winter Park camo shirt's
Mm.
probably not appropriate. But come over by where we live and you better wear a camo shirt. It better be the right kind. Apparently, it's the right kind too.
Mhm.
I had no idea that camo was so complicated. Okay. There's so many different kinds of camo. And this is good camo, and this is not like you don't wear that kind of camo. So who came up with those shirts?
That's the image team. Tyler is the one I would say who spearheads a lot of the shirt initiatives.
Who did he talk to that hunts?
Well, his last name is Hunt.
Right,
So
that's
I
the
think
thing.
that's
okay. So maybe
That's the-
Hunter Hunt. It got okay.
Yeah, it's the
Through the generations, it went back to Hunt. So maybe he's got the DNA
I
to
don't
get
see
the
his
right
dad
camo.
hunting, though.
well, Parks, again, thank you for coming in. It's been an awesome conversation, and we appreciate, again, the legacy that you started and had not passed on. And we're just honored to have this conversation with you. So thank you.
It's
No-
great seeing you again.
Any more stories? No, off camera, we'll tell some more stories.
We'll tell some
So
off.
we've got a lot. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Awesome.
It's good.